Hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back. This is my usual preface for the episode. People think that I'm difficult to understand, and I understand their difficulty. So, the fact that I've given prefaces to all of these episodes and such kind of shows that I'm trying, and I really am trying. So, this is going to be something of a new season, so to speak, but I'm calling it a new chapter because the most recent chapter in my life just didn't work out. It is what it is. So, let's get into this, and as always, stay positive. Let's talk about gauges. For clarity's sake, by gauges, I mean essentially like in a fuel gauge or something similar to that, tire pressure. The totality of experiences that I call life itself for me have led me to basically where I am today. Not basically, completely. And though my personal life is indeed in a bit of turmoil at the moment, my actual conscious life being is exactly what it's always been, focused on being better than I used to be. We all have setbacks and problems in life. That's the price of admission for the greatest gift we'll ever receive, the opportunity to live. What we do with our own individual opportunity is up to each one of us. As I grew through a rough childhood full of nonsense, poverty, victimhood, etc., somehow inherently I just was the idea that at the time my mother and I also deserved better. And I set out to create that better for us. I quickly found out that I was still a child, and being a child, I was somewhat limited in what I could actually do at the time. But that inherent being of seeking improvement only got stronger over time. My, let's call it a life gauge. Life gauge. I like that. New t-shirt's coming with that one. But yeah, the life gauge. Let's talk about that. Being human, our life gauges always fluctuate from moment to moment depending on what's going on in each moment. When at peace, we see much less fluctuation in that gauge. Remember, it is our internal life perspective I'm talking about here, and just live. We all just live, ultimately. It's what we believed most frequently early on that determines so much, ultimately. If the gauge is more towards the negative than the positive, we tend to believe everything is bad. Be that life, other people, intentions. It's just our perception is clouded by just being hurt, basically. But is that really accurate? What happens when we meet one other human is our gauge and their gauge go into overdrive, and our past thinking and beliefs determine how we handle the new kinship that is not yet then established as anything other than, the initial contact. Maybe a little more, but just think like school, work, that sort of thing. Those are easy ways for strangers to become at least acquainted, obviously. The demeanor we believe about another may or may not be accurate. Excuse me, I'm just going to leave that in there, because I'm human too. I want to try to do this one without even splicing anything together. I don't have a studio yet, but in time. DDP, you listening, brother? I was a fan of yours in the 90s when I was a kid watching wrestling. And I love you today for all that you've done for the world. Please, let's do this. But back to the original script. The demeanor we believe about another may or may not be accurate, and the problem is we never truly know. We never truly know each other. We just know our perception of one another. And that may or may not be accurate. Oftentimes it isn't when you commingle wildly different perceptions of life, those gauges. My life has been a ride. Right now, for example, I've lost my second adult try at family after my first wife died, and the blending backgrounds and such just didn't jive. But I love her, and I will always do my best to make sense of all the involved layers involved in all of that, because I do tend to see very deeply and tie things back to their origins as reasonably best possible, which is how I ended up studying human psychology and also philosophy in the first place back in my teens. I'm also losing my chosen career that I made mistakes in for sure, but I always did my best being this guy and carving my own niche as a police officer, which I always approached from my own perspective, which worked for a lot of the public, but not much else apparently. As I sit here, truly on the other side of closing that previous chapter, I write this episode, and I want to be clear that I'm not knocking anyone by stating, quote, it just didn't work. That's life. But back to those gauges. Our life gauges are indeed our perception, and our perception is always subject to bias, confusion, and of course simply not knowing that which we don't know. There is always much to learn. So we mustn't allow our gauges to become so set in their ways, other than the one way to ensure that the gauge doesn't get set or stuck at all. Sounds weird from the self-proclaimed with loads of evidence to back it up pastor of positivity, I know, but hear me out, please. Even positivity itself cannot be idolized to a point where we can't see straight anymore. We have to maintain the focus. We have to understand we are all the same species and all susceptible to the same fears, doubts, struggles, growth, love, hopes. And by physical composition, for the most part, the same brain, too. How you using yours? If self-doubt or blind positivity, either one, has you not seeing straight, stay tuned. All this stuff is already proven in history itself, and to me personally, based on my own life experiences. I do recognize how everything truly just improved after I decided as that teen to turn the crazy anger I had then, now seeing that there definitely was some depression in there too. But I found a very nice place of peace that I lost eventually, because of life itself, basically. When you have to put your own dreams through the shredder, and then, as you're still trying to help the world, so few see that that's what you are deep, deep within, because you're too difficult to follow because you speak in riddles. Here we are. Let's do this. So, yeah, stick with me, as I transition from one career of service to another career that I believe will become a much bigger and better service overall than anything I've been able to do before. I do know that I often talk in riddles. I know I can be hard to understand, but my intentions have always been pure, and I love healing as a general occurrence in life. So this is perfect, that I can speak to the world and not offend people who may end up taking things personally and negatively because of their own life gauge. I'll still have that with the show, but I'll also have a much wider circle of people who love this sort of stuff, love growth, love challenging the limits of human achievement as much as we love challenging ourselves, and simply cannot stand living beneath our potential that we already know exists, no matter what is going on in one's life. We all deserve that much. And we all deserve love, honesty, whether it's about good or bad realities, growth opportunities, and the biggest opportunity of all, perhaps, the opportunity to recognize that we can and do change, and all it takes is a simple, but kind of difficult, simple rewiring of the habits, of the inner speak, so to speak. And if you're listening to this, you're already way ahead of where you may believe you are. So I'll just leave it at this for now. I didn't succeed, but this should only be one splice. So, Vitamin James will share some more soon. So, hey, if you wouldn't mind, help me be able to make sense to more people. It's easy for Neil deGrasse Tyson. Maybe get me in touch with him so we can have a conversation to build on my weaknesses. And it'd be super cool for a number of reasons, but the big one would be others seeing that smart people are more people than smart, as we are all just human, after all. Much love, world. Let's do this. Stay positive.